Welcome to the next installment of the Train Wickham. Today I'm at the port of Littleton. Amongst the ship behind me there's also the heavy lift ship Ems Lift Daphne. And on board of that ship are 3 new DM Class locomotives from Stadler Rail in Valencia. These are the latest batch of DM Class locomotives, with the first one arriving in October 2024. So today I want to look at the early service of the DM Class in the South Island of New Zealand. The first of the 3 locomotives discharged from the Ems Lift Daphne was DM 8070. The process of discharging locomotives is quite slow, but with such expensive equipment, everyone wants to get to this one right. The overall delivery of the new locomotives hasn't been that fast actually, partly due to shipping issues, but there are signs that from now on delivery will be somewhat quicker. While the new locomotives were landed in Littleton, the old DX class locos were still working trains. They will be hauling trains in the South Island for some time longer. The first 2 DM class locos underwent months of testing in New Zealand, hauling special test trains on several lines in Canterbury, for example here on the main North Line. Often coal trains were used for brake tests. The locos were often wired up to get detailed data. The locomotives also traversed all main lines on the South Island for clearance testing. And then in July 2025, the DM class locomotives finally entered service. Initially, the locomotives were mainly used on trains between Christchurch and Timaru. This 160 kilometers distance does not require crew change for return journey. And at that stage, only Christchurch-based locomotive engineers were trained on the DM class. By regularly hauling trains to Timaru, the locomotives quickly clocked up the required 5,000 kilometers of operational running to get full certification. The new DM class locomotives were occasionally sent up the main North Line as far as Tormore to help bring back trains to Christchurch for the last 100 kilometers of the 350 kilometer journey from Picton. When that happened, a DM locomotive was sent empty from Christchurch to Tormore in the morning, then coupled onto front of a DX locomotive that brought the train from Picton, and then the 2 locos together brought the train back to Christchurch for the last 100 kilometers. By now, the DM class locomotives have settled into mainly working around Christchurch. They haul trains between Ralston and Littleton, between Christchurch and the milk processing factory at Bankside near Dunsandel, and then also between Christchurch and the milk processing factory near Darfield. Because they have a cab on either side, they are better for these trains than the older classes with just one cab. Of course, DM 8070 064 also hauled a passenger train when the new Christchurch Stadium was opened and the Minister for Rail was on board that one. And so a new locomotive generation is slowly getting settled into the daily work on the rail network, hauling trains. Soon, it will be their turn being in charge of freight and passenger services on the South Island of New Zealand. Some things will change, others will, well, essentially remain the same. As the train digger, I often relate railway topics to the life of faith. Just as with locomotives, generations of people also come and generations go. The change of generation is something that's particularly noted in the book of Psalms. Particularly, one generation after another picks up where the previous has left off. So it says, from generation to generation, we will recount your praise, O God. And so it is the task of one generation to teach the next generation, and in particular to tell each new generation about God's goodness. Similarly, the Psalms remind listeners that God's faithfulness continues throughout the generations. The book of Ecclesiastes is somewhat less positive. It says, generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. It would probably want to see some more change in the world. Of course, we have experienced quite some change in recent years. And so for us, I think it's more important to consider God's faithfulness through all generations. And as we look forward to also tell the new generation of God's goodness.